Hey everybody, it's Father Sean here with a daily reflection. And I really wasn't planning on doing any daily reflections this week because we're releasing all of those videos about how we're going to restart public mass, reopen public mass in our Petersburg parishes. However, we got dynamite news out of the Vatican today that's just super exciting. So I thought, I got to talk about this. And the news is that the celebration of Saint Faustina, of kind of fame of divine mercy, her feast day has been placed on the universal calendar and been elevated to the rank of an optional memorial, which is huge and exciting. And I know what you're thinking, like, those are really technical words. What the heck does it mean to be placed, two things, on the universal calendar and elevated to an optional memorial? So let's break it down, because within the celebrations throughout the church calendar, there's different ranks of feast days. For example, the Immaculate Conception of Mary falls on a different rank of St. John Neumann, who was a bishop of Philadelphia, who's been canonized a saint, right? They get different levels of feast days. So the highest rank of feast days is what we call solemnities. So solemnity is the highest celebration of the church. So you think about Christmas falls under this. The Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Assumption. Every Sunday in ordinary time is a solemnity, and there's all different ranks within that. But then there's also saints whose feast day is so important that it's a solemnity. So that would be Saints Peter and Paul on June 29th. St. John the Baptist, his birth on June 24th, St. Joseph on March 19th. So all of these high days are called solemnities. The next level below that are feast days, which is kind of confusing because feast days are kind of the big category if we talk of all of these, but then a feast day is a proper title for certain saints' feast days. So the feast, a saint whose celebration is a feast day would be mostly the apostles. To think about St. Thomas, his is a feast day, or St. Mark, we just had his in April, on April 25th. But then some other saints slide in there. So St. Mary Magdalene, her celebration is a feast day on July 22nd. That was just elevated to that rank by Pope Francis. So there's different things you do at all of these masses. So if it's a solemnity, there's always the Old Testament, New Testament gospel reading, and you recite the creed, and the Gloria is to be sung or said. On a feast day, there's only one reading plus the gospel, and then the Gloria, but no creed. All right, so we've got solemnities, the highest one. The next one are feast days proper. And then the next category is memorials. And memorials are actually broken into two separate categories. I know this is getting super confusing. So we've got memorials here at the bottom. And the higher memorials up here are called obligatory memorials. So if they come up, you have to celebrate them, right? The priest can't say, I don't like that saint, let's not do it. No, Father. It's obligatory, so we have to. So some saints' feast days that are obligatory memorial are those super important for the history of the church. We just had one, Catherine of Siena. Hers is an obligatory memorial. Athanasius, who's at the 1st or the 2nd of May. So these really important saints. I mean, think St. Francis of Assisi. These really important saints for the church. Like, if they didn't occur, like, we would be a lot further behind, which every saint's that way, but the super important ones, obligatory memorial. All right, and then the other memorials are called optional memorials. So those that you can celebrate, but you don't have to. So that would be basically every other saint. Their feast day is an optional memorial. So these are less well known. I mean, like Gregory the Seventh, his is an optional memorial. Peter Damian, his is an optional memorial. Some Irish people might take offense at this, but St. Patrick's celebration is an optional memorial. If you hate the Irish, the priest doesn't have to celebrate his feast day. All right, so when we have the book, the Missal here, it's got all the saints. There's a section that's all the feast days throughout the year, and it says solemnity, feast, memorial, or optional memorial. But not every saint's feast day is on that universal calendar, right? There's hundreds and thousands upon canonized saints, and they don't all fit on to that calendar. So what happened is now on that calendar is St. Faustina's feast day. Her feast day was always an optional memorial, but now whenever a new liturgical book is printed, St. Faustina's feast day, her optional memorial on October the 5th is to be included, which gives it just some added that she's a saint. This is a recognition that she is an important saint for the universal church, not just for those who have a personal devotion, or not just for Poland where she's from, but St. Faustina's feast day, her optional memorial, is important for the universal church. So that's why this is so significant. In some ways, it's a liturgical recognition that St. Faustina is important for the entire church. So we celebrate. Mark October 5th on your calendars, because we're going to celebrate her feast day in our parishes. I mean, we'll have Mass, of course. I don't know what day of the week it is. If it's a Sunday, we aren't going to celebrate it. So, whoops. So anyways, we look forward to that. All right, last side note about liturgical calendars. So the next little wrench is that different countries can have their own saints in addition, right? So we've got saints here in the United States that make it onto our calendar. Like I mentioned, St. John Neumann, who is a bishop in Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, I'm pretty sure you have to celebrate his feast day. For us, it's an optional memorial, and it's printed in our American liturgical books. But if you go to, some other country, if you go to Japan and you get out a Japanese missal, St. John Neumann's not in there because he has not had lasting significance for the church in Japan. He's for the church in the United States. So there's a handful of saints like this. You think about St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, who was in Baltimore and in Emmitsburg, Maryland, founded the Sisters of Charity. So different countries have their own calendar. The other thing is that different religious orders have their own calendar too, right? So we think about the Precious Blood, who founded a lot of the parishes in our area. So different saints' feast days. You think St. Gaspar de Buffalo, he's on the Precious Blood calendar. Also Mary Help of Christians, which would be this Sunday, May 24th, but it's a particular devotion for the Precious Blood community. So different religious orders. The Franciscans have their own calendar of all their Franciscan saints. The Dominicans have their own calendar of the Dominican saints. Benedictines and Jesuits, and on and on and on. So that's a lot about the liturgical calendar. That's a crash course. But what I wanted to share is the good news that basically what's happened today in this decree is just a liturgical nod to say that St. Faustina, in her message of divine mercy, has universal significance for the church throughout the world and for the church throughout history. So we thank God today for the gift of St. Faustina's life and for the gift of divine mercy, which she was a great messenger of God's divine mercy. All right, that was like a super long daily reflection. I apologize for that, but if you're still listening, I guess you probably don't care. So thanks so much. Also stay tuned for all those messages this week about the plan for reopening public Mass, and we'll talk to you later. God bless, take care, and trust in His divine mercy.